It is so nice to see you again. I read a stupid number of books in August. Oh my goodness. I read 15 books in August. I'm going to be talking to you about 14 of them because one of them is a secret. You know the drill. I'm just going to tell you what they're about, give you the recommendation if I think you should read it, or tell you to no, avoid it. And yeah, it's a really, really weird freaking mix of books. So cheers. Next up we have A Wild Sheep Chase by Haruki Murakami. This is his third novel and I'm reading him chronologically and it's so good. I gave this 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed A Wild Sheep Chase. It comes off so strong already in his third novel as this is Murakami, you know? I'm Murakami. I'm gonna write about a guy who works at a publishing, translation, advertising company sort of deal who publishes this picture for an insurance company with sheep dazing and dozing in a field, and this super powerful weird man behind the scenes controlling Japan is going to be like, hi, you are going to lose your job unless you can find me the sheep. And then we follow this guy, our poor unnamed protagonist, searching all over Japan for this sheep that's in the picture that has a star on its flank. This just had everything that I love so much in Murakami, the writing that makes you feel so alive, both so nostalgic for life but so excited to go out and choke life to death. There's so many gorgeous passages. I really have already seen him grow in his first 3 novels in writing wise. I would say, like a lot of Murakami novels, this one is a kind of pseudo detective fiction piece where we have our protagonist interviewing people, searching, looking after clues, just trying to find this sheep that represents a number of things. The ominous suited man in power says that the sheep is a tragic figure that perfectly represents Japan. A lot of this does have to do with Japan in I think it's the late 70s emerging, both the contrast of industrialization, consumerism. There are a few unseasoned passages, about ears that I didn't really want to read, but overall this was fantastic. There really truly is something in Murakami that I cannot get enough of. For people who don't want to read every single Murakami novel ever, A Wild Sheep Chase is one that I would recommend you read. Oh god. There we go. I am so proud of myself because I finished another trilogy, another series this year, and that is the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin. So I finished The Stone Sky. This one was audiobook. I feel like I cannot say anything about this because I'm just gonna spoil it for you. This one I think is also a series worth reading. It's sci-fi, dystopian, fantasy, where Earth has 5 seasons. We're set far in the future, and there are people called Origins who can control to some extent the cataclysmic seismic activity, so earthquakes and floods and rock slides and anything to do with geology. They have some sort of power to sense when these things are occurring and maybe change their course. And this book follows a woman named Esun and her plight to reconnect with her daughter, come to terms with who she is, come to terms with her family, while also verging on the tiptoe edge of an apocalyptic 5th season. The first book is by far the best. I think they do kind of go downhill just because the first book was the best thing in the world. It wasn't the most satisfying ending, and this is a book that there's a lot of terminology and a lot going on, and because I've read them so spaced out, it was a little bit hard for me to get back into the world. However, this is a series that I would 100% reread. I think it's so well crafted. The way that N.K. Jemisin writes people and dialogue especially, it just feels completely real to me. It helps to ground the world. But something that I would critique that I just personally didn't enjoy is that the Broken Earth series is, not only is it hard in general to conceptualize a lot of the kind of earth magic that we speak about, but there's also not a lot of description given to surroundings, to places, to different scenes that we're in, to how people look. It is a book very much untethered from those things, I feel like, so you kind of get this floating feeling, and the dialogue is the thing that pins down where you are, how you are, and sometimes dialogue was really all I feel like I was given to situate myself, and it's kind of you have to rely on the characters so much more heavily. But overall, really like this. I gave this 3.5 stars, so I'm really happy I read the series. I just grabbed A Room with a View. This one I read for a 24-hour readathon that I did with Carolyn. I think this is a perfect book to binge read in a day. It was one that I didn't want to put down, so it was perfect that I was reading it for a 24-hour readathon. I don't know why this book made me cry. It did. I was just in the perfect mindset to cry at this book. It just hit me so hard at a time when I was kind of feeling like Lucy, like for Italy to escape somewhere because she wants to escape the kind of constrained English life that she's living. The novel opens with her taking a trip to Italy with her chaperone named Miss Bartlett, and there they meet the Emersons, the senior and his son George, who are quite outlandish. They don't conform to what everyone else expects of them, and of course they offer Lucy and Miss Bartlett their room with a view over the Arno, and it's about Lucy meeting George, about their relationship. It's a super short book, but it's just such a fun critique of like the very stuffy values that Lucy and the rest of her people have to live their life in, and of course trying to break out of that. It's so emotional, it's so poetic. E.M. Forster, like really when he has that opportunity to be, his writing is so gorgeous, especially what he puts in the mouth of Mr. Emerson Sr. Delightful. Just a delight. And like I said, I cried. I enjoyed this so much more than Maurice. I cannot wait to rewatch the movie. I just wanted to read it in the summer and I finally got to do it, so 4 stars, maybe even 4.5. I got to read volumes 4 and 5 of Hunter x Hunter. This, look at this. Are you kidding? Do you see how they don't match? I bought volume 4, the French edition, because I couldn't get my hands on the English one, and it is just tiny. It's more like the, you know, Japanese manga style, but now they don't match. I'm so excited to see where the series goes, because after I read these two, like the hunter exam is over. If you don't know, in this world, people can be hunters, but they have to take a very prestigious test to pass. It's like a test that, you know, thousands of people enter, but only like a select handful, like 10 people can pass. It's very difficult, but I was really getting a little bit tired of the testing, but now we're done with the testing. And now I don't know what we're gonna do. Like now it's just gonna be, I think, a cool, adventurous time, but I have heard it gets quite serious and grim and dark, and there are a lot of like moral choices, moral battles being weighed. I just really love Hunter x Hunter. It's one of my favorite mangas now. Those two, I gave both of them 4 stars. I also read Stoner. I listened to Stoner by John Williams on audiobook. This was a gift, I believe, from Michael, so thank you so much. This book hurt. God damn it, this book hurt so much. So many of you guys have recommended this to me, and I really liked it, but it was also you like it in a way that it just kind of hurts and you don't really want to. It's not a story that I would even call tragic, like John Williams, the author, described it as just like the average life of an American man in this period, in this place, because it just follows William Stoner's life. He grows up in Missouri on a farm with his parents. He's very poor. Eventually he's sent off to university where he is supposed to be studying agriculture, but he falls in love with English literature. The early moments of this book were, I think, the ones I enjoyed the most, because John Williams is just so talented at portraying the little anxieties and troubles and faults and hard relationships of everyday life in such a mundane, blistering, realistic way that sometimes it's a little bit hard to confront. It is such a talent, but at the same time, for me at least, it made it a little bit just an unenjoyable reading experience. Like, you're gonna suffer. The passages where he is falling in love with English literature and being like, but I can't go into this, like I have this expectation that I need to graduate in agriculture, and he has this whole battle within himself. But the passages describing like what he finds within literature, what he finds within himself that the other disciplines aren't giving him, clearly I related to that so much, and it was just something that, like, having gone through myself, it was like hard to read about it from the perspective of someone else, but then also something I so rejoiced in when, like, he eventually does give in to this love that he's found for the subject, and he does go into English language and literature, and he graduates. He becomes a professor eventually. A lot of this book is just university politics, but done in a way that, like, isn't boring. Like, sometimes it had me on the edge of my seat just about, like, different little politics and battles being waged in the department that, like, I wasn't really expecting. It definitely gave me a lot more appreciation for my own professors at university. I just hadn't really ever read a book like this before, exploring kind of the behind the scenes of university life. However, it does also chronicle like his marriage, the birth of his child, and the way that his life goes into middle and later age. It's not that it's a wholly bad time, but it's like not really the best time ever for him either. Like I said, John Williams just presents this man's life without any gloss, and a lot of the times it is a very hard life, but throughout it all, the thing that does anchor him is books. It's books and it's stories. Overall, 4 stars. I feel like I can't give this anything less than 4 stars, but at the same time, I know that my enjoyment of this book isn't at that 4-star level, if that makes sense. I would totally recommend. I think this book works wonders for people. Something completely different. At the moment I'm talking to you, I don't really know why I read this, and that is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. I tried reading this before, and then I DNF'd it on Kindle, and then I got the physical copy because I was hearing so many people rave about this on BookTube and like Harley LaRue in general. This is a supernatural romance about a demon. He's a demon. His name is Leon, and he has been summoned and like brutally abused by this family in this small town. Super rich family, very sketchy, doing a lot of murder, a lot of satanic worship. They're trying to awaken like this god in the collapsed mine of the town. Kind of a weird premise. There were some things that like it didn't fully grasp or appreciate, I don't think. We also follow Ray, whose family is from the town. She comes back to attend the university there, and she meets Leon, and it's about their relationship. This book actually had a ton of plot, which was really cool. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't love it. It was super easy to read. Like, this book is almost 500 pages, and I did fly through this. I actually wish I would have saved this for spooky season because it was super spooky. Also, for the 24-hour readathon, I read The Sailor Who Fell from Grace from the Sea by Yukio Mishima. This was my first Mishima, and I really enjoyed this. I've been thinking about this book for a really long time now. Ever since finishing it, I just keep thinking about it. This is one that I don't think I would have liked to have binge read looking back. I think this is one I would have liked to have taken my time, and I also would have loved to know a bit more about Mishima's life himself. A lot of the things that are discussed in here, sometimes it's hard for me as the reader, because what I'm leaning towards is that what is kind of expressed in The Sailor Who Fell from Grace from the Sea, The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, is kind of Mishima's own viewpoint. I think it's less a critique of the ideas that he presents in this novel than like just a release of them, if that makes sense, because in this one we follow the 13-year-old Noboru and his mother, who is really not portrayed well at all, and I know that's a Mishima thing, I know that much, but she also represents like westernization and the westernization of Japan, which again Mishima was vehemently against. Her mother enters into a relationship with a sailor who has come into their town, and Noboru is kind of like at first fascinated by the relationship. He spies on them in their most intimate moments, and at first he is kind of taken with the sailor himself, because he's like, oh my gosh, he's so cool, he represents the heroic sailor, he is so awesome, he embodies all of these ideals. But as the sailor falls short again and again on these ideals that Noboru takes to an extreme, Noboru begins to hate him, and he also starts to discuss the sailor with this group of 13-year-old boys who are in a gang. It says that their goal in the back is to achieve like extreme objectivity. They're also very against society, which is meaningless to them, and they have a lot of ideas about how to improve people like the sailor. The philosophy of this gang ultimately leads to eruption of huge violence in the story. Ultimately, I was so in love with Mishima's writing. The way that he describes things in this novel are so beautiful. I cannot wait to read more of his books. And like I said, I've been thinking about this one for so long. If you know where I should go from here, definitely let me know, because I really enjoyed this one. I also read the Gitanjali by Tsukuru. This one I don't want to say disappointed, but like, first of all, this edition was just so weird. It doesn't even tell me who the translator is. Sometimes it just did not flow very nicely as well. I so wish I could read it in the original language. And on top of that, another reason why I think I didn't like it was that devotional poetry just is not my thing. I don't like to read endless verses of someone praising like a higher being or talking about their connection with them. I just don't find that it really does anything for me. But the Gitanjali is super famous, super well known, and so beloved, and I just really wanted to love this. I really wanted to love this, but I didn't come away from it with anything. There weren't any lines where I was like, oh, you know, like that hit me in the heart. I'm thinking this one is, like, that's the thing, I don't know if this edition is Takuro's own English translations because he did his own, or if this is someone else's because it doesn't say. Overall, like I said, this just didn't do anything for me. I'm so sad. I will read more of Takuro, but just devotional, like ecstatic poetry, praise poetry. The collection of poetry that did do it for me is Butterfly Valley by Christensen. This is so good. This was also a gift. Thank you so much. This is like a new favorite collection of poetry, 4 stars. This is about memory and butterflies and colors, and like, oh, there's just so many beautiful passages about like what happens when the speaker sees a butterfly and what they remember. Upsoar the Morpheus, the death head, all that turn their night moth aspect outermost, showing me how soft it is to fall into ash grayness and resemble God. The descriptions of this collection, like when in their mating flight the Arctic blues fluttered about all day like bits of sky, like butterflies as bits of sky. Where like the colors, when you see the colors of butterflies in motion and see them flapping, like what they resemble and how that triggers things in your memory. I just thought it was so beautiful. Other butterflies who reflect the radiance of moonlight and play the role of sunshine in dark night. This one took my breath away. So good. I would highly recommend. I need to read more of Christensen because this was glorious. I have 2 pieces here I'm not going to speak too much about because we'll be having our live show for The Cossacks by Tolstoy as well as The Prisoner of the Caucasus on September 10th at 12 p.m. on my channel. I'm not going to say anything else, but I will say that this is one that you probably should go to. You should go to a debate. You should go to this debate. Again, just as recommendations, I would say don't read The Prisoner of the Caucasus because it's just 30 pages, and by the end of it you kind of just feel like, why was this written? It's about a soldier who does get taken prisoner in the Circassian War, I believe. I would say The Cossacks is definitely much more worthwhile to read. I actually like this a lot more. I gave The Cossacks 3 stars. This is about a Lenin who is a soldier from Moscow, and he goes to stay with the Cossacks to fight in the Circassian War as well. A lot of these are based on Tolstoy's own experience fighting in the war, and Lenin, once he's there, wants to relinquish civilization, like his old life back in Moscow and high society and everyone he knows, because he's falling in love with the Cossack way of life, which was really beautiful to read about, but it's also about the sometimes futility and maybe ultimate failure of his wish to reconcile his old life and his new life in the Cossacks, and like if he can stay with them forever, if he can be part of them. And I of course finished 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I can't tell you how happy this book makes me. I can't tell you, I don't even want to talk to you about it. All I can tell you is go read it for yourself. I have 1 full vlog about this up, and then my most recent vlog I spent a good long chunk of time talking about this book, and I just love it. This is my favorite. It's my favorite book of all time. It is. It's my favorite book of all time. I love this so much. This book makes me feel things in a way that just, it's like it knocks the air out of you. It's so beautiful. His writing is angelic. It's out of this world. This is about a family in the mythical town of Macondo and their solitude and their misery and their inability to change, and the way that their life is determined, the way that they pass down their names and their traits and their faults to one another, and the way that they go around in a circle where time doesn't exist, where yellow flowers fall from the sky, where women drift up into the sky, where priests can eat chocolate and levitate. And it also centers around a lot of actual Colombian history and how that plays into the life of the family as well. I can't say anything. It's too good. I can't explain it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never had this intense of an experience with a book where I just can't explain it to you. I know that I will read this book until I die, forever and ever and always, and 500 million stars. 500 million stars. This is my favorite book of all time. The last book I read in August was a big disappointment, and that was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This was my first Sanderson. I'm not like I'm just not gonna read any more of his YA. I am gonna try and read, like, obviously Mistborn and other fantasy series, but this was such a big disappointment. I have a huge rant in this vlog where I talk about it more in depth. On the whole, this is a very boring book, in my opinion, about Spensa, who wants to be a fighter pilot because her father was one, but her father was branded as a coward after he deserted his squadron and was shot down because they live on planets where they're essentially trapped because aliens known as the Krell shoot them down when they try to leave. Spensa does get into flight school, but it comes with a lot of hurdles, a lot of really repetitive scenes, a lot of writing that was really nothing special at all to me, even tedious, and I honestly feel like I could have skipped over so many chapters in this book. I think it's way too long and I would have been fine. The ending was a complete disappointment to me. I thought a lot of questions were going to be answered with much better answers than they were. I gave this 2 stars, really was not a fan of this, but I will try other Brandon Sanderson books. So this is really beloved. I wouldn't recommend it because I didn't like it, but I see, like, I haven't really seen anyone else dislike this, so I would say I guess pick it up because I'm in the minority. So that is everything I read in August. I just had a month where I fell back into it with reading after the moving, and it was just something I really deeply needed. So let me know what your favorite book of the month was, please. As always, put it down below. Start typing. What was it? I'm gonna leave you now, you know? It's done. The video's over. What are you still doing here? Thank you so freaking much for watching. As always, you guys mean the world to me, and I'm gonna see you really soon. I'm smiling because I'm trying not to say things that are gonna be happening really soon, but yeah, okay, I gotta go before I spoil something, so I'll see you there though. Okay, ciao.